Hello and welcome to the Comic Crossovers podcast. We are Geeked Out Nation's primary comic book podcast. Today, I am hosting. Steven's not with us tonight, but we still do have our main host here. My name's Jess Camacho. I'm an editor for the comic site. I'm joined by CJ. Say hi.
Hey guys.
And Jadobi.
Hello.
Alright, so this week we're going to do something a little different. We are running our Best of 2014 articles on the site. So this week's podcast, which is going to be the last one of 2014, will be our look back at the best stuff and maybe the worst stuff that comics has had this year. But we're going to start off with talking about our three favorite books from this week. So I guess I'll just go first. I had a lot to read this week, but I think the top of my list, and it's kind of random, I think what's happening with Catwoman is so good. So Catwoman 37 is at the top. It's like a Vertigo series, but set in the DC universe. It's wonderful. Batman 37 was also really, really awesome. Joker is super scary this time, and it's cool because it's not like he's acting out of character, but he's a lot scarier. And my third pick for this week would be Wicked and the Divine #6. I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore about that series because it's just so good that I'd be repeating myself, but it's very, very, very good. We have an entire podcast dedicated to it now, so if you're listening to this, check out the site because we have Divine Reflections, which is our Wictive podcast, and it's awesome. So what about you guys? What were your top three books for this week?
For me, it's a tough decision. I had a lot to read, but it started with Captain Marvel #10. Which I really liked, just because of the story. Just because of the story that took place back on Earth between I'm already forgetting the little girl, Spider-Woman, and Rhodey. And what I really liked about that, which I think a lot of people can appreciate, is the relationship between the two, which people thought was just a quick little thing and then disappeared. But it's something that they're really sticking with, and hopefully it's something that we can explore more down the road. So that's what I personally liked about it, and that's why it stood out. There was Harbinger, Faith, #0, which is continuing Valiant's line of Zero issues, but this one explains what happened to Faith between the Armor Hunters event and her joining the Unity team. And so this one I really liked because Faith is that kind of character. It shows her as a little girl. She's infatuated with this guy at a comic book store. He's a lot older than her, and yet she's so into comics and superheroes that she sits there waiting for the guy to come out from the back and gets herself so engrossed in the comic that she forgets all about the guy. But in general, you just see how she grows up to be the superhero she's always wanted to be. She got the opportunity. She's joined the team. Now, of course, that the issue after that is pretty much the experience of it all. So I really like this one. She's one of the most genuine characters Valiant has so far. And then there was. Well, it's tough between Storm #6 and Supergirl #37, but I'm gonna have to go for Storm #6, just because this was another, what do you call it? So it was another one-shot story, with Storm pretty much showing just how strong she is. It gets into a little more. It gets a little in depth, showing the way other people react to her, whether seeing her as a mutant, seeing her as a threat, seeing her as a hero, and it's kind of just a personal journey that shouldn't be ignored.
All right, cool.
Cool.
What about you, CJ?
I really liked Miss Marvel. issue 10, I believe it was. I also picked up Witches number 3, which was kind of cool. I did have some problems with the art this time around. I know Jessica knows what I'm talking about. There's just some really, just once I got my hands on it, there was some distracting coloring issues that I had with it. But yeah,
Yeah,
it was
you put
still a
so
good
much
read.
happening on some pages.
Yeah, that was. I thought we've talked about it before, but I thought this issue number 3 was the most glaring example of the coloring kind of just taking away from the story. I still did like to
Yeah.
read. I still like to read. So yeah, Miss Marvel, Witches number 3, and then I think I will go with Multiversity of Thunderworld,
Oh, that was
Shazam and
awesome.
his family. That was such a cool, heartwarming, just a fun story. And I think after like the emotional ringer of Pax Americana, Grant Morrison
Hmm.
decided to give us readers a little some more heartwarming moments for the holidays before he probably like just plunges daggers into everybody's hearts on some counter parallel Earth. So those 3 comics were highlights for me.
Like, how crazy was Thunderworld, though? That was Grant Morrison writing a kid's comic.
I know. Okay, and that's something, right, you would not expect from Grant Morrison. But this comic was just, it was sweet, but it was smart too. I mean, it was everything I wanted it to be. You know, when I have a Shazam story, I want there to be some good, some funny moments, and there was a panel where Dr. Savannah was looking at the comic book that travels through the story, saying they're categorizing mad scientists as cackling buffoons. We don't just stand around and cackle. And then as he's talking to his other scientists, right, a few panels down, they're going,
Yeah, yeah.
and they all start laughing madly. And it was, oh man, I was chuckling for a good while from that. So it was sweet. I think everyone should go pick up Thunderworld, Multiversity Thunderworld.
Yeah, and the thing too is like it's like, yeah, we're gonna keep recommending these issues because they're all one shots. You don't need to read
Yeah.
any of the other stuff, like, at all.
Oh, this story, even if you're not like a huge Shazam person, it's still just a great one and done story. But if you are a Shazam fan, you kind of have to read this issue. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So, we're going to talk about just a couple of big stories that happened this week. And when I mean big, I mean when these hit, it kind of became a thing. Um, First off, continuing the trend of new costumes, Marvel unveiled today that Spider-Woman is getting a redesign. Her costume, it's very modern. She is wearing I described it as like part Batgirl and part Spider-Gwen. She's got a leather jacket. She's got like these sunglasses, goggles type of things, and then she's gonna still have like her wings the gliders that she has, right under her arms, and then it's very hip. Chris Anka, I believe, has redesigned it, and it's
Yep.
gonna first debut in um, a video game, in the Spider-Man Unlimited mobile game, and then I forget what issue. Oh, Spider-Woman #5, which will have art from Javier Rodriguez. So Greg Land is off the book. Um, that's where the costume will debut in the comic book world. Uh, Chris Anka is actually the person who designed Dazzler's new costume, the Psylocke costume that she wears now, where she's like completely covered up, compared to the like very tight and showing outfit she was wearing before. And he also designed Wolverine and Storm as of recent. But obviously Wolverine's dead, so she's had this look for a long time, Spider-Woman. But I don't know if I'd call it iconic. I guess you could. I like the costume. I think it's kind of cool, but I do worry that we're starting to lose the fantasy of superheroes Like, I mean, superheroes are not supposed. I mean, at least to me, like superheroes are not grounded. They're not real. We're not going to wake up tomorrow and have Superman flying through the air. So I almost feel like they should kind of have that fantasy element to their costumes and not necessarily be like half naked or anything. But like, I like the spandex. I like the over the top costumes. They're like these fantasy gods that take care of all of us, and so they wear these outlandish costumes and they're as over the top as can be. But I kind of like it, and I don't know. I like it and I don't like it. I mean, I don't hate it. I mean, how could you hate like some kind of redesign like this? It's a cool outfit. I mean, I guess a lot of people are gonna cosplay this. But I don't know. How do you guys feel about this?
I pretty much feel the same way. I think what I was saying earlier about her kind of losing a bit of the Spider-Woman look. I think mostly it was just also losing that fantasy look to her. That's pretty much what I was getting to. I mean, sure, she can still pull off the spy look, the agent look. I guess I guess we really just have to see how how she looks in action. That's pretty much what I'd have to wait for.
Yeah, I'm a little more I think I'm taking a little more of a liking to it than you guys. I don't think it's necessarily losing what Spider-Woman's all about. Oh, I'm not a huge Spider-Woman fan, but I wasn't a fan of her original costume to begin with, like with the spider arrow symbol going down. I don't know, I that just didn't do it for me. The image I'm looking at right now of the new image, it looks like she still has the webs in the underarms. You guys see
Yeah, she
that?
does. Yeah, she
Okay.
does because that's supposed because she's still gonna do the same. She's still gonna function the same. That's why they're there, so she can glide and stuff like that.
Right. That's good. I'm glad that they're keeping that. The biggest change, I guess, when I'm looking at her right now is the goggles. With the taking away the exposed mask that she was wearing, where her mouth and the lower part of her face was, and just trading that with the goggles. That does kind of give it like the secret agent look. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I get what you're saying, Jessica, about you know superheroes should be allowed to have big, bright costumes. They don't have to function in any sort of tactical way, right? And it's not they're superheroes. We don't have to make them realistic. So I think it looks good. That's kind of my overall impressions. Wasn't too into her old one, so I think this one looks kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike it. I mean, I think it's a cool look. I mean, and now that you bring up the part of it, that is sort of what she is. I mean, she's
Yeah.
technically part of the Spider family, but her history is very deep within Shield and Sword and those organizations like that. So maybe the storyline is supposed to be that she's taking a street level approach to helping the citizens of New York City. So I guess it makes more sense that she'd wear something more understated. She looks like she can walk into a like a bar or something. Like
Yeah,
if she walked in like the Spider Woman bright red spandex, people would look at her. But like now she could probably get away with like opening up the jacket and just walking into somewhere to like spy on people. So I guess that makes sense. But what's really weird about this is not even 5 years ago. Like if you look at the kind of costumes we have, like we have what Spider Gwen wears, which is like the hoodie, which I love. But I mean, she wears that. You have Batgirl wearing the Doc Martens and the leather jacket.
yeah, and the
Now,
jacket.
now you have Spider Woman wearing this. Like 5 years ago, they put Wonder Woman in a pair of pants, and everyone lost it.
Yeah,
So can you imagine how much times have changed in like just 5 years? Like, because
yeah,
people really went crazy to where they undid
yeah.
it.
And those things can stick or they can't stick. The pants, that didn't stick really with Wonder Woman, but Hawkeye's costume, I mean, that was a long time ago when they changed that. But when was the last time we saw him in his like original costume? Hawkeye's old.
He doesn't wear that anymore.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone wants that back. I mean, maybe, but.
Nope.
No, I mean,
don't.
but that's what I'm saying. Like 5 years ago, people demand. I mean, I didn't. I thought the pants were cool, but people demanded that she stay in the like two-piece thing that she wears with the short shorts and the top. But now it's like audiences now are like, well, that superhero's not realistic enough. So you kind of get to thinking like, well, is Wonder Woman next? Because without going on too much of a tangent, what the Finches are doing on Wonder Woman right now is horrible. So I wouldn't be surprised if in like 3 or 4 months we see that they're going to sort of do a soft reboot again on Wonder Woman and give her another creative team, and then they change her look. Because it just seems like the way people want costumes to look is changing. So wouldn't be surprised if we see Wonder Woman in pants again.
Yeah. And then you'll get the people with pitchforks and signs saying, "Take off her pants," but they'll be misunderstood, and it will be a whole debate.
I mean, and then it goes back to like what counts as too sexy. Like I always think it comes down to how the person's drawn, because I think like the way Cliff Chiang, for example, drew Wonder Woman in the run with Brian Azzarello, the first like 35 issues. I never thought she came off too sexy. But then, like, David Finch draws her, and it's like, okay, Wonder Woman, you might need to put some pants on. So for me, it always comes down to how somebody draws the character, not necessarily what they're wearing.
Yeah, for me, I think it always just came down to older readers versus newer readers or people who accept change. Because like I remember I had an interesting conversation with an old lady at a comic book store who worked at a comic book store a couple days ago, and I was asking her about Spider-Woman's new costume, and she was saying she likes it, but she was definitely sure that if people didn't like it, it would be people like her who are more old school readers. Like generally it's them who would have the problems with it.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy today. I work at a comic store, and I was talking to a guy today. He's one of our like regular people. And at first, when we told him she was getting the costume design, he didn't like it. But then we told him that she's going to be doing more street level stuff, and he was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense then." See, for him, he was saying that it's all about, does it even make sense with the story? Or are they just changing it to change it? And that's why he said he didn't like it initially. But then he also said the same thing about Captain Marvel. He was like, when she got a redesign, it was because she became more of an important hero. She like promoted herself to Captain Marvel, and then since she's a pilot, it looks like a flight suit. So it all just like, he's like, it's all about whether or not it has a purpose in the story. And then he also brought up Red Sonja and how the artist doing now, Walter Giovanni, like he makes it so it's like, it's almost like this is what they wore at that time for women, and she kind of wears that because it's not like anyone's going to hit her anyway because she's so good that they'll be on the ground before they even get close to her.
True.
And I'm like, and that makes sense. And I think that's what we have to look at when we look at these like costume changes, because they're not always just like, let's just change it to change it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the next big story that happened this week was that DC announced their March solicitations, and there were a lot of cancellations. And obviously, anytime DC announces anything, it becomes a shitstorm because that's just the internet's reaction to DC nowadays. Which, I mean, take that as you will. I think they get way too much hate, but whatever. Aquaman and the Others, Secret Origins, Clarion, Green Lantern Corps, Red Lanterns, New Guardians, Swamp Thing, World's Finest, Batman Eternal, Future's End, World's End, Trinity of Sin, Arkham Manor, Batwoman, and Star Spangled War Stories are all getting canceled. I wrote an article on the site about this. It's not crazy long, but basically my whole thing with this is April is when Convergence starts. And it's almost like they are making space for the books that are going to come out of Convergence. And I think like when it comes to like Green Lantern fans who are upset that so many of those books are getting canceled, a lot of those characters have been through big changes. So and the way I'm seeing it is that after Convergence, those characters might just get relaunched.
That's true.
And the same goes for like Batwoman. Batwoman desperately needs a change. I mean, I know like the most diehard Batwoman fans that just can't read that title anymore. It's that bad. So she needs a relaunch. Star Spangled War Stories, that wasn't selling very well. Trinity of Sin, that was like at the bottom of the list once it got launched. I mean, that just wasn't selling. Aquaman and the others, the main Aquaman title doesn't even sell like that well. It sells well, but not well enough to get a second book. All
Red
the weeklies,
Lanterns.
yeah, I mean, but that's the thing, that might get relaunched too. Swamp Thing is going away because Charles Soule is leaving. I'm convinced Earth 2 is ending soon, so that's probably why World's Finest got canceled. And then the weeklies were already scheduled to end at the end of March. So I just don't think there's enough reason here to get upset. I think when not April or May, but when the June solicitations come out, I think if you don't see certain things there, I think that's when you should be upset. But I don't think there's any reason to be upset right now.
Nope. Not at all.
Yeah, I'm not upset about any of these cancellations. I am surprised, though, at the Lantern books. You know, looking at this list, New Guardians, Red Lanterns, and it was New Guardians, Red Lanterns, and one other Lantern book. Trying to think of it off the top of my head. But yeah, you know, the Lantern books have just had so many crossovers going through them. Just it seemed one after the other recently. So I think maybe they'll start other Lantern books to replace them. Like Jessica was alluding to, after Convergence, there's just stuff's gonna go down, and the other guys could get launched. But some of the other books that got canceled, like Aquaman and the others, I haven't been reading that, but to be honest, I was surprised that they had more than one book for Aquaman in the first place. Like, he's awesome, and I heard the book's good, but I don't know if anybody expected that to go on for very long. Aquaman and team-up book, and the weekly series were expected to end. Isn't that right? Like,
yeah, no, March, they were all supposed to end. That's kind of why it's called Convergence, because all of these are supposed to converge into one. But Batman Eternal is going to happen again. They're going to do a year 2 of that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're doing a year 2 of that. That's already confirmed. I mean, they've been talking about that a lot. They just haven't said what it's going to be about.
Wow.
Yeah, so the only one, the Lantern books kind of surprised me, but I have, there's so much to do there. Everybody, and a lot of writers have Lantern stories, so, that's going to be coming back. So the one I'm looking at that kind of surprising is Trinity of Sin. That's only going to make it up to issue number 6, and to be honest, I thought that book had a lot of potential. It wasn't. I've read 4 of the issues, and I think it's been okay. But it just seems 6. It's just such a wow. That's a stiff cutoff.
Yeah, Arkham Manor is the same way. It's only getting 6, and I think Clarion is only getting Clarion is another one that's only getting 6.
Yeah, so that always feels like such a cutoff. That's a trade worth of materials. I would have liked to see Trinity of Sin just to see where that's going, or to see where it would have gone. I don't read Arkham Manor, so I'm not sure about that.
You bring up Trinity of Sin, and I've had this kind of running theory that those Trinity of Sin books, the Pandora, Phantom Stranger, I think those were all supposed to be something bigger, and it just didn't work out. Because if you look at right after Flashpoint happened, Pandora was in all the number 1s. She was watching all
yeah.
the events.
Yeah.
And then they did the Trinity War where they found
Which is
Pandora's box,
that
which
was
is how they
totally
brought
just
the
a
crime
lead in.
syndicate.
That
Yeah,
just seemed
and
like it was just a lead-in, to Forever Evil, which was the big event. Trinity War was awesome. They really hyped it, but it was just the intro to Forever Evil.
then after that, there was really no function. But even in Trinity War, those two characters still didn't play that huge of a part. So it's
Oh,
still
yeah.
like I'd almost feel like they had these huge plans for those three characters, the Question, Phantom Stranger, and Pandora, and it just didn't. Whatever the plan was, just never came to fruition. And so they've kind of been trying to backtrack and do something different. And it kind of upsets me only in the sense that they threw the Question into this. And before the New 52, the Question, Vic Sage is awesome. I love the Question. I will read old Question trades like crazy. I love the Question. So then that kind of brings me to my next point is, with all the cancellations, are there any characters specifically that even if they get relaunched, are there any specific characters you'd like to see get their own book? And I know there's Green Lantern characters that have started to take a bigger part in things. So instead of it being Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, Jon Stewart, and Hal Jordan, just throwing that out there, are there just any other characters, even from just that universe, that you'd like to see get their own chance at a starring role in their own book?
You go ahead, Jadobi.
I mean, like the only if a book was to get relaunched with a different character, my I would always go for Great Swamp Thing, maybe the Machine Queen or something, because that's the only book that didn't surprise me when it got we heard that it was ending, because for everyone who read the Future's End story, you knew that was pretty much the end point, and everything since then is leading up to that very moment, which will come in March. So I want to see a story from the perspective of some of the other kingdoms, and I think they could do something just as well with that little world, the same way that they do with the Green Lanterns. You have the Gray Kingdom, the Bacteria. You have the Machine Kingdom. You have all these others that are a lot more than they seem on the surface.
Okay,
Yeah.
what about you, CJ?
I'm gonna say I would love to see another book where we can get Shining Knight and Etrigan the Demon in a book. I will buy the crap out of that. I will be I will buy 2 of every issue just to keep that going. When the New 52 started, Demon Knights I thought was a really underrated book. And that ran its course. So I'd like to see Etrigan and Shining Knight and some other magical characters, maybe some Xanadu. She's popped around a lot of books, but to have them on a team again, that would be really cool. And I really liked I Vampire, the story with Andrew Bennett. It was Joshua Hale Fialkov. Now I don't think they're going to bring that book back, but I'm kind of a sucker for vampires, so more magical stuff, more mystical, magical DC stuff. That'd be fun for me.
I'd like to see. I know Carol Ferris has been really involved in things recently, so I'd kind of like to see. I don't think the Green Lantern's world has ever had a female-led book. I think it's always been the 4 Earth guys. So I'd kind of like to see maybe her get her own book. I don't know how well that would sell, but it'd be kind of cool. I want to see if they're gonna relaunch some Green Lantern books. I kind of want Simon Baz to start getting bigger, because Jeff Johns invented him, and that was kind of personal for him because he had the same ethnic background as Jeff Johns, and so I mean it was in the way he came in that they accused him of being a terrorist, and I'd like to see him maybe get his own book. I know a lot of people have been asking for Poison Ivy to get her own book.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm kind of down for anything. Um, I don't know what her book would be like. I don't even know who would take that, but I'd like to. I guess I'd be interested in that. I really want to see Birds of Prey come back. I think it's really weird that there's no Birds of Prey book in at DC right now. And then I guess maybe I think Batwoman needs a new team. I think that DC needs to get somebody on that book that can do something cool with her because she's a cool character. She's very different from
How
everybody else
about
in
the
the
old
Batman universe.
creative team? How about the old creative team? Let's get them back.
Yeah,
That
I would love that.
they were awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe Batwing, but I think he had what 30 something issues, and
30,
it
yeah,
and
about 36.
so I don't know if that's even a possibility at this point, unfortunately. I hope we get a Shazam book. But
That
Definitely.
would be
I
cool.
don't know who would do
Shazam and
that.
Cyborg.
Shazam and Cyborg, yeah, that would be fun. No, that would be fun. I mean, that would be a fun little bromance to watch.
You know,
But I don't know. No,
both
go
Cyborg and
ahead.
Shazam are going. Oh, sorry. Most. I was just gonna say both Cyborg and Shazam are gonna appear in films eventually. So we might actually see a lot more of them in the comics. Just because there's always that correlation. Of trying to hype up.
Yeah.
So I could see Cyborg and Shazam getting a lot more uh, play in the comics in next year in 2015.
I could see them getting their own solo books each
Yeah.
because I think they could carry it. I mean, you've got The Rock playing Black Adam, so I almost feel like you have to do a Shazam book, but you need to tread lightly when you do a Shazam book because Shazam should not be a dark character.
No.
All
Nope.
these characters I listed, like they all need to be different tones. Like Shazam should be a really fun, silly story. Obviously, he's got things and he's got to fight Black Adam, and Black Adam's not a funny character, but there has to be a lot of humor in that anyway. And then maybe something like Birds of Prey, that's more serious. And then a Simon Baz book is just like Star Wars like space adventure. That it all has to be different tones. I think that's important for DC to do.
Simon needs
Um,
to happen.
yeah,
I
he
felt
has another one. It's like they had all these plans for him, and then they just didn't happen.
like personally, I felt a little slapped in the face because I liked his story. I was following that, and then all of a sudden, and then I also what was that one? Justice League. Shoot, what was that team called? International? No,
Yeah,
you know,
there was a Justice League International.
I think that was it. But or was that Justice League of America? Oh,
I think it was Justice League. It doesn't matter.
yeah. Either way, they stuck him on that second-rate team with everyone else, and they all just got forgotten.
How about some Mr. Freeze in Batman too? I haven't seen much of him.
Yeah, I mean that's another one that'd be kind of cool.
Wouldn't mind.
I mean there's just a lot that they could do. So yeah, I mean it's gonna be interesting to see what they do. But only time will tell what happens because we're still too early to see what they'll do. So the last big news story that we have here is that Archie Comics is going to reboot the entire world of Archie. Um, 2015, there will be a new number one by Mark Waid and Fiona Staples. Yeah.
That's gonna be
um,
crazy.
yeah, Fiona Staples is doing the art for the first three issues, but she's also redesigning the characters, so she's going to be forever felt throughout this because she's redesigning them. This is part of a recent reinvigoration of Archie. They've brought in some brand new talent to run things, and from this came Afterlife with Archie and the Sabrina series. They also they finished off Life with Archie by killing Archie in their alternate world,
Uh,
and they they will be relaunching their superhero line called Dark Circle, which is their superhero line, and that's going to be um, some new superhero titles with characters that haven't been seen in a very very long time, which means They're going to be done up brand new. I think this is awesome. I have very strong feelings about Archie as characters. I work at a store, and I see a lot of kids coming in with their parents, and they tend to buy those Archie digests for their kids. It's very slice of life, very normal American kids dealing with, like, getting their driver's license and passing tests and things like that. But it's all very 50s. It's a little too wholesome. But I think it's a good gateway to comics by reading, like, a teen drama. I mean, when you're, like, 14, what kind of shows do you watch? Stuff with, like, teenagers having drama. So I think it needed to be updated. I like that it's not going to get too serious, though. Like, I love the image of Betty. She's got the pom-pom and her jeans are all ripped up. I think that's cool. And then, like, Jughead looks like he's got a little goth in him. I think that's cool. I like this. I'm very excited for this because I think this could be a big, big deal for getting younger readers into comics and for Archie as in general.
Yeah, Mark Waid and Fiona Staples, that's probably one of the biggest team-ups you could have in comics right now. I mean, Mark Waid has just done so many things over the years, and, like, almost all of it's been really great, if not, like, phenomenal. And Fiona Staples is one of the best artists in comics right now. So, I mean, that's the best. That's like a dream scenario, I think, for a lot of people that not just are into Archie, they're just into comics in general. You know, those two teaming up. So, I think it's awesome. Like, I don't read Archie myself. I read Afterlife in trade, and that's just brilliant. But I'm not even into Archie, and I'll pick this book up just by the talent on it alone.
For me, I know I'm very interested in it just because I like I might not be reading Archie, but I like classic characters, and I like previous works that Mark Waid has done with classic characters. So I'm willing to give this a try just to see how it goes for me.
Yeah, no, this is so cool because it's just like Archie is just supposed to be like a reflection of people. Like, they don't have, I mean, outside of Afterlife with Archie, they don't have very complicated lives. So it's kind of cool that they're updating it for, like, a kid, like a teenager now to get into, or even people our age to get into, because it's just more identifiable, I guess. And I think Mark Waid's, like, the perfect guy to do that, because I think he just gets how these things should work. Like, he just gets how these things should be written. And it's kind of crazy that it took so long for this to happen, because even now, like, if you try to pick up even the new digests that come out, they're just like, it's so unreal. It's like, this just doesn't exist. This is so old. But
Yeah.
it is. It's just so old with, like, the bow tie and the sweater, and it's just like, who even wears that? Like, not even in the nicest neighborhood do they wear that. So yeah, I mean, this is cool, and Archie, their editor-in-chief and things, they've already said that they're not going back, that this is what Archie will be now. And then Mark Ecko is launching a clothing line modeled after the clothes the characters wear, so that's cool too.
That's interesting.
They're going into this head on.
They are.
See, but that's what I like. That's what I like. That's what I like. That's what I want to see from different publishers. If you have something like this, you need to go head on. You need the merchandise. You need to get people to notice it. You need to make sure that there is something there is some sort of hype following. It's something that people would invest in, and this looks like they're really putting the effort into it.
Yeah, and Fiona Staples has done some covers for Archie. Like, she's done a lot of variants for them, especially within the Life with Archie series. And she's made, like, she did a cover a while back of Josie and the Pussycats, and it was like the coolest thing ever because they looked like real rock stars. And I was like, I kind of want those pants. You know, they were just cool. And I'm like, I'm kind of excited to see what she does. Like, they didn't show Veronica, but I'm hoping that Veronica just wears, like, all Abercrombie and Fitch. and she and she just comes off like this rich girl next to Betty's ripped jeans. Like, I just need to see that, and yeah. So I mean, this is really cool. So yeah, I mean that's all the news we've got this week. So I guess we'll just jump right into talking about this year in comics, and I guess the first thing I want to ask is, of all the stuff you've read this year, has your allegiance to a publisher changed? Do you feel like you're still either a Marvel guy or a DC guy, or do you feel like the indies are kind of stealing you away?
Um, I've generally been a Marvel guy, but even more so an X-Men guy. So I think that when I started to get into some of the Dark Horse superheroes, it started to feel like all that was really holding me to Marvel was the X-Men. Well, it is the X-Men right now. So I'd say definitely my allegiance has probably moved on to Dark Horse, their superhero line, their Halo comics, everything dark and creepy about their books like Colder, and of course the Aliens vs Predators Fire and Stone crossover that's even still continuing into next year.
Okay, what about you, CJ?
Oh man, I thought you were gonna say what's your favorite comic, and I'm like, oh no, don't make me choose. But as far as publishers, I've always been an indie guy, and right now, Image is. If I had to put my allegiance somewhere, it's with Image. I mean, there's like 10 books I could name off the top of my head that are all like top-notch titles for me, and I just don't, and just Marvel or DC to me can't compete. Just where my interests are right now. Not to say that Marvel and DC don't have some great books, because they have a lot of really good titles. But for me and my interests, there's just so much that Image is doing right now that is just blowing me away.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess if I had to pick, I was always more of a DC person than Marvel, even though I read a ton of Marvel books. But the same thing goes for me. Image is really just becoming my go-to place. This year, I think I tried every single brand new series they put out
Yeah, and they
because
put
it's
out a lot of number
amazing.
ones. They put out a lot of number ones. It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. I mean, they just keep proving time and time again that you're better off. You're almost better off some weeks spending your money with them than anywhere else. I mean, even next week they've got another series launching, so they just don't waste any time. They're just, let's just keep going. And I think like things like Bitch Planet, Rumble was this week. That was a cool series. Wicked and the Divine, Southern Bastards. It's like the Southern Bastards is brilliant. I mean, that is such a good book. Alex and Ada. It's just like no matter even their older stuff, like something like The Walking Dead, like they just keep going. It's so good. Like Saga. I love Saga. Saga, I think, had probably its best year yet.
Yeah, Saga. I mean, you guys have your own Wicked and Divine podcasts. I know there are other Saga podcasts out there. I mean, and it's such a worthy title of it. Saga is worthy of all the praise it gets.
Uh-huh. What about you, Adobe? Do you have any image series that you feel stick out more than anything else?
It's all the fantasy stuff, so that's pretty much the Wicked and Divine, Red Queens, Birthright, just everything like that. I mean, of Birthright, of course, it's only 3 issues in, but that one's pretty much captured my attention completely.
Yeah, their fantasy series have been really good, and I'm not a huge fantasy
Oh,
person.
Death Vigil. Whoops, I almost forgot Death Vigil. I don't. My
Yeah, no,
brain is not on that.
Death Vigil is amazing. Death Vigil is one of the better fantasy series that exist anywhere. I think Saga especially just keeps continuing to blow people out of the water, and I think Sex Criminals won a ton of awards this year, and I think that made some people say it was overhyped, but I think it earns all of that hype. It's so funny. It's always doing something different. It's not really relying on the same old jokes that it was before. Um, yeah, I mean, Image is just really killing it for me. They're just doing such great stuff. As far as just every publisher, what were your favorite series?
Ooh,
That's a lot.
yeah.
Name like, yeah, I'm gonna put you all on the spot. Name your top three.
Oh crap.
Okay. Okay. Well, I would say for Marvel, I just don't read a lot of Marvel, but my top three would be Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, G. Willow Wilson. She's just doing a phenomenal job. Thor, God of Thunder had a great year in my opinion, really good year. And the third book from Marvel, ooh, I think Magneto's been really good. You read you're into that, right, Jadobi?
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen some of your articles. Magneto, yeah, I think that's my top three for Marvel.
Oh, that's a tough
What
one.
about you, Toby? What's your top three Marvel?
Top three Marvel. Shoot.
X-Men.
Yeah, Uncanny X-Men. That's one of them. Thor, God of Thunder, and it's gonna be hard. Uh, think, 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 think. Oh, Mighty Avengers.
Ooh.
It's an out there choice, but Mighty Avengers for me. I feel like they're a team book that tries to also be different. They don't they're not the Avengers. They're not the new Avengers. They're not the Uncanny Avengers. They're not the big A-class heroes, but they're C-class heroes making it out there. They're showing people that you don't need to be iconic to be a hero or an Avenger.
Shout out to New Avengers too. Just saying.
Yeah, well, Jonathan Hickman just keeps like doing the best things ever. I mean, I'm behind, but
Me too.
it's almost like he can't do any wrong when it comes to those characters and in that book. For me, my top three Marvel would have to be Ms. Marvel. I don't think I've ever responded this way to a new character. Um, I'm gonna also say Captain Marvel, and just because like that's just such a fun book, and I love Carol. She's like a superhero that I can get behind. I just get her, and then I have to say Uncanny X-Men.
Cool.
I think Uncanny X-Men is just like, I think it's the best of all the X-Men titles.
Yeah.
It just has the characters I really like, and for me when it comes to an X-Men book, that's a huge plus. Like if I'm not invested in any of those characters, then it's going to be hard for me to want it to be for it to get to be my number one X-Men book. But yeah, I mean that's definitely my favorite three Marvel books. But honorable mention to like the new Thor. Even before the new Thor took over, like Jason Aaron is doing such cool stuff with Thor.
Yeah, that's what I was focusing on too.
Yeah, it's like the new Thor. I mean, we don't really know her yet, so I can't comment a lot on her. Because there's just not that much to say. But just what he's done with Thor as a whole has been really cool.
And when Esad Ribic was doing the art on the book, oh man, phenomenal stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so switching over to DC, did you have three DC titles that you felt just stuck out to you more than anything else?
Me, I'd say Injustice, Gods Among Us, Wonder Woman, and Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing, probably one of the most beautiful titles out there in DC, has a straightforward story. Charles Soule knows what he's doing with Swamp Thing. He's never the same. He's always being resourceful. He's always turned it into something new. He's taken advantage of the power of the Green Avatar in ways that the others have not. And not to mention, we've explored different areas of his world, as I said earlier, with the new kingdoms like the Machine Kingdom, or the ones that we don't see much of, like the Gray Kingdom, or crap, why am I drawing blanks? But just yeah, all the kingdoms. It's just all over the place, and there's actually a straight story to it that almost feels like an epic to an extent, because you know the end, but it's just all about the journey.
Do you have two others, or is it all just Swamp Thing for you?
I thought I mentioned the other two, unless I cut off.
Oh, you did. You said Injustice. You said Injustice.
Mhm. Yep, Injustice and Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah, I mean, rip Wonder Woman though, because that's like the last time we'll probably I'm sure this year and this time next year we will not be saying these things about how great Wonder Woman was.
Nope, nope, because I already dropped it.
Yeah, I mean, I gave it another issue to try to just win me over, and it is so different in like every bad way. It's like the stuff that Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chiang created doesn't matter anymore.
Nope.
And I mean, they reintroduced Donna Troy at the end of 37, but she was naked, which was confusing because it just was like, but why can't she have pants? So it was a little confusing. And then the story, it's like they're not content with just having an issue where Wonder Woman just deals with stuff, where she's just like, a lot of time with Brian Azzarello, it was a lot of talking.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of story to get through, so there were issues where it was just plot development. Here, it's like they gotta throw in a fight. Like, 36, she meets Swamp Thing, and right away she's punching him in the face. And it's
I was like, what?
Yeah, it just didn't make sense with what New 52 Wonder Woman has been. And it's like, I almost want to be mad at Brian Azzarello for introducing her becoming the God of War, because it's like, the Finches don't know what to do with that.
They should.
They're kind of making it to where, like, Wonder Woman is a character who's supposed to be able to handle everything, and, like, in this version of her now, it's all too much. She can't be with Superman and be the God of War and be on the Justice League at the same time. It's just too much. And it's like, but it's not, because she's Wonder Woman. That's her point. She's supposed to be able to do everything the way she wants to do it.
Exactly. I like what I liked about Brian Azzarello's story is that it wasn't even about handling all those roles at once. It was about accepting it, and even her just being able to take all that responsibility, and even take responsibility in the power that she has, because like even halfway through it, you see her struggling to fight with her own power without taking off those cuffs and going God level on people.
Yeah. And I agree with Injustice. I mean, that's just been so good.
Yep.
What about you, CJ? I know you're a big Green Lantern reader.
Yeah, oh man, it's been a good year for all the Lantern books. I mean, you had a huge changing of the guard and everything that went on associated with Jeff Johns and handing over the reins, so to speak, to a lot of other writers. I mean, there's been a lot of creative teams involved with the Lantern universe, but for Johns to take a step back from Green Lantern, that was just a huge change. You know, he's had has been such a guiding force for the whole Green Lantern universe. But for my favorite series, you know, I gotta give one of them to Forever Evil. I just love that. I think we've talked about it before, Jessica, and you liked Forever Evil.
I did, yeah, I did. I liked Forever Evil.
Yeah, so that was just really fun for me. I think I'm gonna get that in a collected edition, even though I have all the issues. I think I want that as hardcover. Another book I really liked was Sinestro.
Yes.
Cullen Bunn has just been he's like developed into like this just a guy that knows how to write those like anti-hero characters. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between Magneto and Sinestro. Uh, not in the aesthetics or powers or anything, but just this air of air of confidence they have about each other. And I know Magneto's been dealing with some other stuff, but Sinestro's been a really cool Lantern book. It's been really
Yep.
cool. And then
The end just always to me.
yeah, Eaglesham's art. Even though he draws Sinestro like less like the traditional Sinestro with the large forehead and thinner mustache and being slender, Eaglesham's Sinestro still is pretty kick-ass. And then my third, I'll go Forever Evil Sinestro. Oh man, that's a tough one. I think I'll go to just the consistency of Batman. Zero Year, I'm not 100% sold on it, on me loving it. Like it finished and I thought, oh, that was good. It went on for a long time. Well, it went on for a year, but I guess I'll go with Batman as my third pick, just because even though I wasn't in love with Zero Year, I always had a good time reading the comics. And Capullo and Snyder are awesome.
Yeah, for me, I'm actually gonna not put Batman in my top three. I think it's definitely on our top list for the site, but that's because other people voted it for it to be in
Mm.
as high as it is. I know it was on my list, but at the very bottom. Um, I just was kind of over Zero Year. I was ready for that to just be done.
Yeah. A lot of people did feel like that too. It was such a long story.
Yeah, so my top three overall, I think my favorite thing coming out of DC is Earth 2 and the weekly series that goes with it. I'm gonna count those as one only because there's no plausible way you can read the weekly series without reading Earth 2, so they're sort of like one giant book. It's such a cool story. I mean, it's like it has a lot of what you remember from like pre-New 52 DC, but then there's a lot of stuff that they've created just for this, and I really like Injustice, but Earth 2 is kind of what made me get to the place where I was like, well, if Tom Taylor writes it, I'm reading
Mm.
it. um, so I love Earth 2. I think Earth 2 is amazing. And I'm actually going to put Harley Quinn at number 2 because DC does not have a lot of fun books. I mean, I like their books. I mean, I like the more dramatic stuff. I think there's value in it, but Harley Quinn is just like insanity. So it's funny, and I think DC needs a little bit more of that. And then I think for my third spot, I'm going to say Justice League.
Mm.
Um, Justice League is really, really good.
Fantastic.
Jeff Johns is still writing that, and it's so good. It's intense. Um, and it was interesting because usually tie-ins to any events are usually, chances are they're not going to be very good. And the Justice League issues that had to do with Forever Evil were wonderful.
Yes. Cyborg.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you had Cyborg's story going on, and it was just like, what? This is amazing.
Didn't they introduce Plastic Man in one of those tie-in issues? Am I
They
imagining?
introduced. I don't know if it was I don't think it was Plastic Man. I know that they brought back the Doom Patrol.
Oh, I remember
Um,
that. Yeah, that was
yeah, they
huge.
brought back Doom Patrol, and that was a big deal. Which would be, since they were introduced the way that they were, I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the post-convergence titles. I have a feeling it's gonna be. Um, but they also that was Cyborg's story, and they also brought back the Metal Men in there
That's
too,
great. Yep.
which was cool. I wouldn't even mind a series of focusing on them either, because that could be another book that's just fun. Because those characters did not come off serious at all, which was nice. Yeah, so those would be my top three DC. Now, we talked a little bit about Image. So aside from Marvel, DC, and Image, what books stuck out a lot for you? Like, for example, for me, or just talking about an entire publisher. For me, I think Boom Studios really came up this year. They did a lot of stuff like Lumberjanes and Mimetic and a lot and Midas Flesh, and they did a lot of miniseries that were really good. I wouldn't be surprised if like next year more people are saying that Boom Studios is their favorite
Mm.
publisher, because they just put out a lot of stuff, and it was a lot of different stuff. They had sci-fi, they had stuff for kids, they had comedy. It was just a lot of stuff, and I think Vertigo had a really good year too. Vertigo's not what it used to be, but I think they're slowly getting there. Bodies, Names, the quarterly that they put out, those were all really good. And I'm excited to see what next year holds for Vertigo, because I think that they're getting back on track to putting out unique and different and very edgy stuff that no one else can put out.
Yeah. So are you asking just which publisher? Are we giving
Um,
kind of a
Publisher or a certain book that we haven't talked about that you wanna touch upon, or
yeah.
an artist. I mean whatever. This is our last segment of the episode, so
Okay.
anything you felt we left out, go ahead and give it a shout out.
Well, while you were talking about your DC titles, I also wanted to say about DC that if I was going to redact my Batman statement, Jeff Lemire's run on Green Arrow was awesome. Like that, I forgot about that because now it feels so long ago. But earlier
Mhm.
this year, with his Outsiders War with Green Arrow was fantastic. Like him and Andrea Sorrentino were so good. That was one of my favorite books earlier in 2014. Just gonna give that a shout out. But yeah, like to echo what you said, Jessica, about Vertigo. One of my all-time favorite series is Astro City, and even though it's being published by Vertigo right now,
Mhm.
it's not typically associated with Vertigo because it's been published, by Homage and a lot of different publishers over the year. But Astro City had one of its best years ever in 2014. Kurt Busiek, Brent Anderson, Alex Ross, that whole creative team that's been doing that's been doing Astro City for years, had like their most consecutive year of putting out Astro City stories. Like it was pretty much monthly. I don't think they missed a beat at all, and it's such a quality comic. A lot of them are one shots. I think Astro City number 18, Astro City number 16 was one of my favorite issues I read all year. And yeah, I just want to for sure say that Astro City had a fantastic year. And then I'll just end with saying that Image, we said it before, I'll say it again, Image has so many good series out there. Like, I don't even read all of them, but I know from what other people say that even the books I don't read, like I don't read The Wicked and the Divine,
Mhm.
and I don't read Deadly Class, and I know people love that, and I will take their word for it because it's just Fraction and I don't even remember the title I said before, but Image just has so many quality creators just ready to tell their stories at Image. Jessica said Southern Bastards. I picked up that trade and it's so well worth it. Oh my
Oh,
God,
it's
it's $10
amazing.
and that first trade's phenomenal. Image has so many great series that even big name books kind of like they're putting out so much quality stuff that even big books like East of West and book like that's a book that's a huge book, but even that like doesn't I think always get enough attention because of just the quality stuff. Like Brubaker and Phillips have signed on to be with Image consistently for the next 5 years. I mean, that will make a lot of comic fans just salivate. I mean, Fade Out, I
Yeah.
think it's only on the second issue. Fade Out, it's only on the second or third issue, but that's awesome. They brought Fatal to a close. Fatal for like 2 years was one of my favorite books. That
Oh
came to a
yeah, Full
close.
Sail was fantastic.
Yeah, that came to a close in 2014. I bought every issue. It's all bagged and board because that was a quality comic book. That
Mhm.
was quality, and the finale was just beautiful. Oh man, Walter Simonson came back to IDW to do another Norse mythology story called Ragnarok. That's like so awesome to me because I love Walter Simonson. And then lastly, yeah, oh, and Greg Rucka and Michael Lark continue to do an awesome job with Lazarus. It is such a smart book. It's a dystopia book that's all too realistic, though. It has to do with these basically. There's no more government. It's all these corporations that are. It's almost brought it back to like a feudal society, a futuristic feudal society where corporations rule areas of the world. And man, it's so realistic and smart that I love that book, and I love Outcast from Image. So 2014 was so awesome for comics, in my opinion. Like, there's just so many books that are great.
What about you, Jadobi? Do you have any last minute things you want to say about 2014?
Well, I have a lot to say about Valiant and Dark Horse, starting with Valiant, which really surprised me this year because, of course, Valiant is a growing universe since they relaunched it because, especially a lot of their superhero books, be it Harbinger, Exo Manowar, Eternal Warrior, just everything like that. And it's just been crazy because you have all these heroes who are developing in their own solo series, and then you have this, and then they all came together in Unity, which became their first superhero team book, and then you had their first crossover event called Armor Hunters that pretty much brought everyone together because all of their heroes are written so well that they were all self-contained in their own corners of the world. And then with Armor Hunters, it was an event so big that that this was pretty much their coming out to the rest of the world. Like the world realized that there are Psyops they're pretty much Valiant's own version of mutants or Inhumans or mute or metahumans, and they're aware that there are people out there, powers. There are people out there trying to protect them. There are threats outside of Earth. It's all just crazy, and it just leads to a lot of potential stories, initiatives like the Valiant now with a lot more series that are coming out next year that extend even further out into the unknown of what that universe has to offer, and that's not even and what's always appealing about Valiant is that it's always easy to follow when a lot of these series when they only usually have 9 going at a time, which gives them a lot more room to actually give us quality over quantity. And even when a story like Eternal Warrior only comes out in about 4-issue miniseries, you can still go a long time without reading that series, knowing that there will be another miniseries later to give you more of Eternal Warrior. Like we had Volume 1 a couple years ago, we had Volume 2, then not too long ago we had Eternal Warrior Days of Steel. Same thing with Shadow Man. They had one story, they had another one, and then they had End of Days. Um, so they have a good structure, and they put a lot of effort into making sure you know what they have out there and just what their plans are for the future. I don't think I've ever looked at Valiant's news and not seen them all over the place, making sure everyone's aware of what they're doing. And then there's Dark Horse, who has made a lot of progress with their superhero line, which they call Project Black Sky, which all starts with Captain Midnight, this genius inventor who's literally the anchor of their whole universe. I mean, like it's one thing if you just have a whole bunch of people all over the world and just bring them together. But this one guy is the reason for everything unexplained in the Dark Horse universe. How people have things that are technologically out of their reach. How people have powers that cannot be explained. Of course, that doesn't explain the supernatural stuff, which he still thinks he can solve with technology. Um, but there's it's just they just put so much effort into giving you superhero stories, and whether they sell or not, they're going to show you that they care about these stories and about these classic characters, because a lot of them, like Captain Midnight, X, Ghost, Brain Boy, are all classic heroes that they've relaunched and reinvented for new readers, modern readers, of the like, and that's not even scratching the surface when they've also had their fair share of showing off what new creators, writers, artists can do with Dark Horse Presents, which is their anthology, which pretty much is a whole bunch of about 4 to 5 short stories, and they all just progress over time with each issue of Dark Horse Presents. And I like it because if that series gets enough praise, or if it's rated high enough, it can actually go on to its own ongoing. Like like a good number of the superhero titles all started in Dark Horse Presents. Even some of the other smaller titles started in Dark Horse Presents and then branched off into their own thing. And then the real special thing that Dark Horse did this year was with the Aliens vs Predators franchise, which is something that really took me by surprise, just because of the quality of the stories, especially the Prometheus one, just because of Paul Tobin and Juan Beria. I can never get that right. But either way, I mean, the only problem with that initiative right there was just that there was the ordering of the issues, which confused you if you were trying to follow this as a big story. But if you were just reading each one by itself, whether it was Prometheus, Aliens, Predators, or Aliens vs Predators, they were all great stories on their own.
All right. So that about wraps it up. So please make sure you check out the website where we're running all of our articles of our best books of the year in separate lists. Up on the site so far, we've got Colorist new series, mini series, and I think we have a couple more, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. But we do have a few already up there. And follow us on Twitter at Geeked Out Nation. Check out the site, and we'll be putting stuff up all through the holidays. Mostly just these lists with a few opinion pieces and a couple of reviews, but we'll be back in full swing after the holidays. Again, make sure you check out the Divine Reflections podcast, which is our Wicked and a Divine-centric show. And we will see you guys in 2015. Thanks for a great year, and thanks for all your support. See ya.
Later.